This week on the show, we got our first look at Furiosa and Fallout and furrow our brow at film finances. It's time for Nerd Here Weekly. Bruno, do the thing! Welcome to Nerd Here Weekly, the show that's all about trying to figure out how to convince people you didn't make any money in the industry that famously makes tons of money. I'm Riley Trahan, and this week I'm joined by Fred Neighbor.
How's it going?
And coming to us live from his hometown, where he's working with a local hunk to save the bakery, it's Jackson Trahan.
Oh my gosh, I've been isekai'd into a Hallmark film again, haven't I?
Let me ask you this, how you feeling about Christmas in this whole thing?
You know, I'm pretty against it, but I feel like I could have my mind changed.
Just because you're so busy with all your business?
Yeah.
Well, if you want to get busy with some business, why don't you tell people how they can support our business?
You can support our business in a number of ways. You already are by just listening to the show, but if you want to go above and beyond, you can subscribe for $5 a month to our... do we have a name for it? I should know this. Did we ever decide on a name? You can subscribe and gain access to The Nerd Out, an extra show where we talk about things that interest us, whatever suits our fancy, things in the news that we didn't get enough time to get into here. And it also gives you access to the video podcast. So if you're only listening to this show, you could be watching this show and seeing our gorgeous mugs like this one.
That's a good question. We should have, maybe in the new year we'll come up with what do we call the people who pay to follow to be a member of the show, because so far we've just been saying, you know, they're members of the NIHF community, but yeah, they should have a
special
names.
Title for their specialness.
And I don't know if I wanted to tip my hand about this, but it's come up organically. I had talked to Bruno about planning a Nerd Out where we just kind of came up with a mascot for our website.
Oh, okay.
So that might be folded into
time.
Yeah, that might be the right time for that conversation. So look for that. But behind
make sure you subscribe before then.
Yeah, so you can find out what you're called,
what you are.
There's probably going to be some kind of a poll too. So if you really don't like it, you can.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, that's a great point, Fred. There will almost definitely be a members only poll. And if you want to vote in that members only poll without having to give us one red dime, you can go to NIHF.com/Godzilla, and there is still time for you to get 4 free weeks of the Nerd Out. That's 4 full episodes of the Nerd Out, plus the whole back catalog. So you can listen to all the ones we've ever done before, plus you get 4 new ones.
You're very determined.
Yeah, well, sure. But it should give you enough time to actually figure out whether or not $5 a month is a good price point for you, whether or not you're enjoying what we're doing there. So go ahead and check it out. We just did Pictionary. Jack came up with all the news stories.
Only mild technical difficulties, but it was fun.
Yeah, we have no idea what it's going to look like, but we had a great time, and we will almost definitely do it again, because trying to guess how Jack worded the prompt of a news story into Pictionary was very enjoyable.
I thought what whoever was saying it would be able to be like, yeah, you got it.
No, yeah, we all learned a lot for sure. I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong. I had a great time. I hope people check it out. NIHF.com/Godzilla. You can watch it for free. All right, let's get to the news, guys. We got a heck of a roundup to get through. And then Deepak, I didn't mention, not here for totally legitimate reasons. Don't worry. He hasn't stormed off in a peak of madness. He's not Lenining us. He will be back soon. Lenining us, of course, when you lead a communist revolution. Never mind. Let's get to the so we've got some news in here maybe that Deepak wouldn't want to. I tried to pick some stories that would
he wouldn't normally be
just would
the
account
most
for
communicative on.
There's some more video gamey stuff than usual, let's say. But we're going to
Mhm.
start with a story that we've all been tracking for a long time, and that was a story that we saw this week that on Newsweek, the headline was Disney's terrible year is about to get a lot worse. But the basic idea was that the Jonathan Majors trial has the date set and it is impending. Jack, what do you think about this?
I was saying it's kind of surprising to me that we haven't actually gotten any like official legal stuff in this case. Like it's all just been
Conjecture.
rumor. Yeah. Conjecture is a good term. Considering that I do think it has already had a pretty significant impact on the company and on Marvel specifically. But we've talked before about how hesitant Disney has been to, take any real definitive action on it. And I'm sure they are waiting, or at this point, it seems like they are probably waiting for some kind of a ruling or at least an idea of how the case is going to go. So we'll see.
One thing too, Fred, is that I think one of the big sticking points, it would have been fine had they made the decision to cut out that Ant-Man post-credit scene, right, where we saw the billion Kangs.
Yeah.
But having decided to double down on the billion Jonathan Major Kangs, I have to assume that's the only real reason this is even an issue, right?
Right. I mean, it's got to be. I can't imagine why this would reflect poorly on Disney, except for that. I feel like, it isn't hard for us to imagine that a Hollywood actor turns out to be a terrible person. I think we've seen that enough times.
Yeah, right. There's just been.
But I don't think that we've ever blamed a studio for that, right? Like, I don't think Disney knew what he was doing before they hired him or before they decided to do that. And then everything came out, and then they kept the one scene for Ant-Man in. And I think it was stupid. I think it kind of shot themselves in the foot as far as what they're going to do with Marvel. But I think Newsweek was being a little clickbaity with that title. I don't think that this reflects super bad for Disney specifically.
No, I agree with that. I think that there's probably more of a thrust that the overall year for Disney just hasn't been great in the news, right? We'll talk later about how the box office hasn't been there for them. Public support hasn't really been behind the MCU as a whole. And I think being in the news just in this way is probably not great. Although I do want to...
year for Disney, though, was a great year for everybody else.
Yes.
So okay,
I also,
sure. You didn't make all of the billions, but you made some of the billions.
Yeah, we'll dig into that. I also just wanted to call out before we move on here. I've been reading this book called Monsters by Claire Dederer, and it is all about how do you kind of separate art from artist in terms of terrible people that have made great things. And it is she goes out of her way to make it her own journey and not prescriptive to the human condition. But one of the things that she talks about a lot is that from her perspective, it perhaps should be on people like Disney to make sure that the people they're hiring are not, criminals and domestic abusers, so that then, the consumer is not ever put in a position of having to go, well, am I going to keep listening to Michael Jackson music because somewhere along the line, someone else did their due diligence and didn't give a monster billions of dollars. But we can talk about that another time, because right now we have to talk about the very serious business of the Squid Games reality show. So first of all, the Squid Games reality show exists. I'm sure we all want to talk about that.
Talked about it.
But that's the dessert. And first we have to eat our vegetables, which are that the players want to be compensated over the injuries they sustained during filming. Now, Jack, as you know, I have not seen Squid Game.
I'm still upset at you.
Is that how it goes in the show? Do they get to sue for
No, weirdly. On the show,
it's a lot less bad than what I thought.
If you get hurt and don't die, they put you in the coffin anyway and put you in the incinerator.
Holy fuck!
It's a rough show, bud.
Yeah, dude. No one is getting out of the island to sue the games there.
But yeah, I mean, it's a silly idea for a show. Yeah, we've talked privately that just completely missing the messaging of the television show. This reality show is absurd. I assume there is a real cash prize up for grabs.
Yeah.
Or else people wouldn't be doing this. But I would also assume that they would, you know, do new. Honestly, I would think they would do new challenges. It seems from what I have seen that they are recreating the challenges from the show in non-lethal ways.
Okay.
But it doesn't surprise me then that like some of these premises, like falling off a bridge, are prone to injury under the best of circumstances.
It's
that's
yes,
understandable.
we knocked out this type of game show back in the 90s. I don't know why.
Yeah, right.
Like Fear Factor is a show. Fear Factor existed.
Mm-hmm.
We've already done it. I don't
reason Joe Rogan is famous.
Yeah, I don't see the issue with we could have done this without hurting people. I don't like the nerve damage and hypothermia. Where did that come from? Like I feel like those are easy ones to fix. Just make the filming area a little bit warmer. Don't put people in water. Like it's not hard.
Don't put people in water. Great call.
I mean, Survivor's been going on for 45 seasons. Like, how have we not figured out how to put people in these situations in a safe way?
Well, listen, part of it is that the mechanism of reality TV is designed to take as poor care of the contestant as possible. Like if we actually want to dig into what you guys are talking about, like a lot of these reality shows have existed for a long time, but you know what they do little to nothing to guard against is the psychological damage that they take on people. And like there are real calls right now within fan communities like The Bachelor, for example, to like get therapists on set to make sure that these people are okay while they're going through this incredibly artificial process that has been made up to psychologically torture them. Right. And I think that this is probably like, I wonder if this Squid Game case will advance any of those other things, because this isn't like, this is physical and so it's maybe easier to litigate in a way. But yeah, I mean, when people want to talk about reality TV, part of the reason I get defensive when people talk poorly about reality TV contestants is that they are treated like human cattle because the American economic system didn't provide them enough money to live their life. So they were willing to try and live on an island for 40 days, right? Like that's fucked up. Like that's already Squid Game, baby.
That's the point.
Right. Yeah. Right. But Netflix never won for nuance. It went, what if we make them stand in front of a big scary doll?
Well, that was just Korean.
We already have the
the Korean cinema really hits the nail on the head all the time.
I think you're right, Jack. I think a lot of this was they already had the sets. All right. While we're in the realm of the streaming wars, let's, before we depart, just real quick, pay lip service to the idea that Apple and Paramount may be bundling their streaming service soon. Not sure if that means anything long-term for the future of either of them, but the idea of bundling them together under one offer certainly seems like it's the first step towards something like that. Jack, is this the beginning of the end? Is this when
I hope so.
The what do you call it? The collaboration of them all begins. They start to condense down.
The singularity.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I genuinely hope so, because I hate the state of streaming right now. But
it seems like we've gotten to as bad as it could possibly be. But every time I say that,
well,
yeah.
You know, I do already think of Hulu and Disney as kind of one.
They definitely are. They
are.
One thing now,
I have a Hulu account with a bundle onto Disney Plus. I don't have.
Right. So I definitely think that this is, if not like legally or officially in any way, this is going to change the way people think about Apple and Paramount as a better package deal. And you're right. If acquisitions were ever to happen down the line, there is certainly a preference for people you already have working relationships with, right?
Yeah.
So I do think this is a notable line in the sand being drawn. And I mean, if you're asking me who would be likely to acquire who between Apple and Paramount, I'll plead the fifth, but feels pretty obvious.
So just to play devil's advocate here, because I agree that like less streaming services, just more bundles make it just so much simpler and so much easier.
I just wanted to put a call out to the fans. If you send me a supercut of Fred saying just playing devil's advocate across like even just all of 2023, I will pay for your Netflix for a year.
Look, this is America. Everyone deserves a fair legal defense, the devil included. Um, that's in the Constitution. But no,
Go
okay.
ahead. Defend your
Those
devil.
words.
Well, so we are pretty anti-monopoly here, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's
So
fair to say.
I think that the idea of just bundle packages and getting these accounts down is very appealing to us, but I do think we want to be careful, just because we don't want to just limit all of our choices, right?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
So like I like the idea of bundle packages. Like I said, my Hulu and Disney are all one thing. They're all owned by Disney anyway, so it's fine. But
well, yeah. So when we talk about these things, right, and that's fair, Fred. Let's spend just a little bit of time on the details of this. What we're actually talking about here is that there would be an option you could have, I assume, available through either party's website, where you could subscribe to both Paramount Plus and Apple TV Plus for less than subscribing to either of them separately. But the offer to
well,
subscribe,
for less than subscribing to both of them together.
right? Yes, separately. Right. Yes, right. Verizon right now offers you a similar deal to get Netflix and Max. God, that was hard for me to say.
I don't know what HBO is doing. I'm just going to call it
formerly
HBO
known as HBO.
Yeah, it's
and then, like you say, you can get ESPN, Disney, and Hulu all bundled up together. So maybe this is the soft consolation. Is we now we have the bundles are forming, and then
then there's Prime. Although Prime sort of has there are just so many little things that subscribing to Prime gets you that aren't even like there's the streaming service, but then there's also the free shipping, and then there's also like Twitch integration and
grocery store coupons.
Yeah. Prime is its own thing. I never really count Prime just because Prime exists in the physical space too much.
It's almost like Amazon's like too big a company or something.
Is no longer a book retailer.
Yeah, they were a bookstore, man. They had the wackiest books. Could you think of if you could go to a bookstore and pick up a melon? Like a really good melon. Like an artisanal melon from a bookstore.
Like, if the melon wasn't good, you would just call them and they'd send you a new melon and you don't even need to give them the old melon back. Because it's cheaper for them to give you a new melon than come take the old one.
Weird company. All right, let's get into this shit that T-Pack doesn't want to talk about. So Microsoft is trying to get Game Pass on every screen. I thought this was interesting. This was the original reporting came from a GameSpot piece. Microsoft wants every Game Pass on PlayStation, Nintendo, and every screen possible.
Yeah, quote, every screen possible.
This is sort of in line with news we had already seen around this, right, guys? That they were, Spencer was trying to push this, and that this was kind of, I feel like this is consistent with what we've seen from Xbox, right? Which is, we are making Xbox a subscription, not a device.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel like this just goes in line with Phil Spencer, just like get it out there kind of an attitude.
When did I start calling him Phil Spector? When did I start doing that? And why can't I get it out of my head now?
I don't know.
When he died. They did say in the interview that this is like a symptom of a new corporate attitude in the Xbox team broadly. To stop trying to so strongly compete and more focus on, I suppose, collaborate. My note was, and I stand by this, I think it matters a lot more what Sony or Nintendo want to do than what Microsoft wants to do. Like, I'm not surprised they want Game Pass on those systems. And, for what it's worth, what Apple wants to do, as people who have just released new computers and phones that they really strongly push the gaming capacity on. I would be very interested if they are in any kind of talks, because Apple's gaming library is not extensive for how strongly they are pushing the M3 chip and the iPhone 15 Pro.
It feels like these two companies should be talking a lot, because this is like
Microsoft and Nintendo and Apple.
I know it's God, it feels weird to say that.
We live in new times.
But yeah, I mean, no, because they are pushing the hardware and Microsoft is trying to push the software. And it's like, this works out perfectly. But also it's Apple. And
I mean, Apple's always been a hardware company.
Yeah. But
in my humble opinion, not a lot of people love Apple's first party software and support. Not a lot of people buy Microsoft computers. That's a That's a verifiable fact.
Does Microsoft make computers?
Yeah,
This
and
is-
phones.
Yeah, they make phones now, Fred. They make televisions if you want to buy them, for God's sake. Yeah, no.
They want to be Sony.
Yes, you guys are getting at something that goes much deeper, but is also inherent to the streaming war and everything else, right? Which is just that none of these companies have a lane anymore. Like the model used to be that you would make money for having a niche, and now you have to do everything. And that's just kind of how the economics of the business have progressed over the last 20 years, and it's nuts, and I hate it. Cool. Last thing I wanted to say before...
I mean, Game Pass
also, I mean, just slightly related, but barely. I was at Micro Center yesterday, right? And so I was just walking, just browsing. You know, like you do at Micro Center.
Just a casual visit.
Just casual browse.
Computer electronics store.
There was a new handheld for like $700.
Yeah, remember? I was thinking about this the other day. What do people buy their like 10-year-old? I guess it's a Switch Lite, which is like $200, which isn't terrible, but remember when a DS was $100?
Okay, so here's the thing, and like I can't be too loud because he's over there.
Yeah, go on.
A DS.
Mm-hmm.
Not even kidding. It's over there.
I like where your head's at.
Because guess how much it was? It was like $100.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just not a market that exists anymore. And Nintendo was basically the only one, but now PlayStation's $300 handheld, which only works when you have a $500 console.
Yeah.
Dark times. We're in dark times. But we can end with some fun video game stuff. Jack.
Yeah.
Did you want to tell everybody about
Oh, yeah, I'll
Wappeach?
introduce it. Sure. We got the God graced us with what we were all asking for. The creator of Waluigi, who was, for those who aren't hip to the Waluigi lore, created to be a doubles partner for Wario in Mario Tennis, revealed that he was asked to and did, in fact, create a design for a Wappeach as well, to presumably be Peach's doubles partner. Although that doesn't make sense because she had Daisy, and also why would she be with the villain? I don't know what the plan was. He said that
She was gonna have a Wayoshi.
Is that it?
Yeah, that looked like a dragon.
That's awesome. I wish they committed to that. They also said that Wario and Waluigi would have been like, she would have seen them as her minions.
I love that.
She's cute. I'm surprised she's not like ugly. Like she just looks like a little anime girl.
Yeah,
with a weird outfit.
She's like just Peach, like goth Peach. But not even like emo Peach.
Yeah, but hopefully, I mean, this has been blowing up all over the Twitters and the other places. So maybe the backlash will be strong enough that we could see her in a few. She kind of looks like Rosalina, actually. I wonder if
you haven't seen her yet, head over to our Threads account. And we'll have posted up a picture there along with.
And then you don't have to go on Twitter.
We're trying our best to help keep you off Twitter. That's part of what we're. X by Elon is no longer a safe place for us mortals. Fred, anything you want to say about Wappeach before we head to the next segment?
No, I mean, I feel like.
See, this is why I want to give you the opportunity.
This might be a whole other can of worms that we don't have time to talk about. There's a real thirsty demand for Nintendo fans for
I'm sure it's already
I'm sure it's already out there. Characters. It's there was a girl Bowser thing that like broke the internet for
and so like and everybody made porn about it.
So I have concerns, but also like
I'm sure the internet's best people are already on it, Fred. I have no doubt in my mind.
With that,
no, there's a strong demand out there for more evil female characters in Nintendo games.
Good to know. Take note, gentlemen. With that, I am going to send you all, our viewing audience, to witness the trailer for Fallout, the new series from Amazon. And then on the other side, we're going to talk to you about it. That's the trailer for the Fallout series coming from Amazon sometime in the new year. I'll have a date for you here in a second. What are you guys thinking about? What are you talking about? Where's your mind going? April 12th. It's dropping April 12th.
That's pretty soon. Yeah, it's by I mean, it looks like Fallout, to be fair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a fair assessment.
It is an interesting proposition, because Fallout is, to me, one of the, especially the older Fallouts, maybe less so than 3 and 4, which are Todd's babies. Fallout's like a quintessential real role-playing game, in the sense that it very strongly encourages you to make a character and make decisions consistent with that character's like internal life. And so putting, it's an interesting world, but I am curious how well it will hold up when it's being told a story about someone specific. I think that was one of the big criticisms of Fallout 4, was that like your story as a player is so specific that it does not encourage real role play. You are a parent who is looking for their kid, and that's already a pretty prescriptive box to put a character in.
Right.
So I think that would work better as a show, maybe, because people are more expecting that sort of thing. But I just wonder, with all of the elements of that game that are so clearly designed to like be a player choice thing, like all of the different factions that you have to choose between supporting or going against, and I wonder how they're going to play all of that. It does seem like they are heavily involving the Brotherhood of Steel, because as they always have to, because the power armor has become a symbol of that series, despite not being its original intention, really.
Because power armor is just really cool.
Right. I mean, it looks awesome.
It looks
no
great.
arguments there.
Yeah. So I was thinking about the 2, Jack, and I actually think that this is going to be, like, I think it's going to be a boon. So if you guys remember the Halo show, there were some very...
I don't, but go on.
There was... Master Chief did some very strongly uncharacteristic things for Master Chief. Right?
Right.
We can all... Yeah. Interesting choices were made, and you're like, that's not John 117. What the fuck are you doing? Like, you don't have that problem with Fallout. Like, you can make your protagonist do stuff, and no one's going to look at that and be like, no, that's not what...
Because you don't have a
Fallout
central main character. You can just make whoever you want.
Exactly, yeah. So you do have a lot of freedom in that role to kind of push people one way or the other. I do hear what you're saying. I always think building your own character is kind of difficult for TV shows, like those types of games. But I definitely see the freedom of like being able to do whatever you want in that space now, because there's no set, well, this character would do this, right?
That's fair.
As far as the Brotherhood of Steel goes, I love power armor. Like, it's super cool. That being said, the Fallout 3 Brotherhood of Steel versus the
I love fascism.
Well, so that's the thing, right? Fallout 3 Brotherhood of Steel versus Fallout 4 Brotherhood of Steel feel very different.
I mean, even Fallout 3's, but from Fallout 1 and 2's is pretty different. Which
means, like, how are they going to do the Brotherhood of Steel?
Yeah. I mean, there are different factions that all have different ideologies, and I'm actually very curious about, do we know what Vault it is? Let me look this up.
Oh, yeah, that'll affect it too, actually. It seemed like they were all still living there, so...
Vault 33? Let's see if we know anything about that already. Because there are a lot of, like, audio or logs and things in these games, and they often talk about vaults. Like, I think 76 was a vault that was mentioned in Fallout 2, and then they made a whole game about it. So I'd be curious if this is a known vault.
I think that there's a lot of interesting stuff in what you guys were just highlighting, as well as, I don't know, some, like, just TV.
Sorry.
Yeah, which vault?
It is, Vault 33 is not mentioned before, but it is canonically on the West Coast, which is interesting because that actually puts it with non-Bethesda Fallouts. Like, that, the whole informal distinction.
Well,
Bethesda's Fallouts are on the East Coast, and the original Fallouts and New Vegas are on the West Coast.
No, that makes sense, though, because that's a different Brotherhood of Steel, and that's...
Yeah, that is where the Brotherhood is less fascist.
But I also just made that up, so check to see if that's true.
No, you were right. I did look up Vault 33, and that is correct. They're talking. It only shows up in the show, but it is in Los Angeles.
Okay, so yeah, but that's also Echelon. It's the former U.S. government is over there too.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. Well, there.
Is Echelon the name? I think that's wrong.
Echelon. You can make the rest of your point, Riley. I'm sorry. I didn't mean
No,
to
I really
interrupt.
just thought I was the one I was the only one that had played these games. So I'm just really impressed by you guys being so deep in the lore. I had no idea. I thought I was going to be on my own. I think that these are definitely Todd's Games TV show, right? I don't expect this show to acknowledge Fallouts 1 and 2 hardly at all. I think there will be New Vegas stuff that probably has to get folded in because of the love for that game. But I expect that this will be a game that mostly takes place in the universe of Fallout 4 and whatever parts of the universe of Fallout 3 are convenient to that story. I don't know how much I expect it to be canon narrative aligned with the game stuff necessarily. Like
Enclave, Fred.
Thank you. Yes, that's the one.
I don't know how many of those guys we'll have to find. I kind of expect the Brotherhood of Armor to be pretty fashy in a TV series taking place in releasing into the public in 2023.
Yeah.
Right. I like that Walton Goggins is a sexy ghoul sheriff. That's an interesting combination of things to me. Like the visuals of what looks like basically just that there's a town in the game that's based all around where a nuclear bomb fell but didn't explode, and some of the imagery looked like a similar kind of a town to Gigaton, which would be interesting. Megaton.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like in general, I feel like they got the vibe right. I am a little, I guess hopeful because of how well I feel like the Amazon Lord of the Rings show went. Right, feeling like, oh, maybe they know how to adapt a universe, and they clearly have more money than they know what to do with. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's looking pretty.
Westworld showrunners, right?
No, Jonathan Nolan is doing. Oh, is it? Yes. I'm sorry. Maybe you're right.
Yeah, brother Nolan and wife did Westworld, I think.
Cool. They did Westworld. Yes. I just got confused. I got confused about which video game property they were developing. But yeah, no, you're right. This is them. Yeah, so at least the first season will rock.
Yeah, they know future Westerns in a weird way.
Yeah, I do. I was going to mention the gunslinging ghoul too, Riley. I thought that was really cool. They brought the dog back, which great choice. Absolutely phenomenal. Just you can't have a Fallout game without that dog, and I'm glad they did that.
I mean, you could say it 4, but yeah,
they had 4 of them before that
dog. To do a new one.
Yeah.
No, there was a dog in 3.
No,
wasn't there?
So.
Was there a dog?
No, it was a big point.
The dog gets introduced in 4.
That was a big part of the advertising.
Now I'm going to go back to asserting that I am the only one that have played these games.
No,
I've definitely played 1, 2 in New Vegas more than I've played 3, 4, or certainly 76.
I played 3 and 2 just because I liked 3 because of where it was it's
in
DC.
Boston. Oh no, 4 is in Boston. Yeah,
3 is
in
DC. Yeah,
3's in DC. So you go into the metro and you're like, "Yep, this is the metro.
This is where I live." Yeah,
and Arlington, and it's like, oh.
Well, I like. There's the clip, kind of just what you were saying though, Fred. Like Michael Emerson sitting in the night, just being spooky. I'm sure he'll come back, but even if that was just a one hit in an episode, she just encounters a scary NPC who says menacing shit, that'll be good. There's also still so much visual stuff that we haven't seen, right? A lot of the visual spectacle of Fallout, and
we saw a rad roach.
We saw a rad roach, right? Yeah, there are much bigger, spookier, crazier things to see out there. That I hope will get incorporated into the series.
I also think it'll be interesting, now that I think about it, as an opportunity to canonize events in the Fallout universe.
Interesting. Yeah.
There's just like I mentioned, there's a big disparity between the East and the West Coast in this world because it's hard to get across what is mostly deserts and untamed wilderness, even before the bombs dropped. So I'd be curious if they tried to do anything to that will come up in Fallout 5, I guess, presumably.
Yeah, I mean, as Riley was saying, how it's probably going to exist in the Fallout 4 world. I'm pretty sure Fallout 3 exists in the Fallout 4 world too. Like they talk about it. They're
They all
close
exist.
Oh,
enough.
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. But in terms of
It's
just what
more
they,
like the time span, because all the
Yeah.
vaults open at different times, so
Yeah.
you can be
Mhm.
further or less far along in the apocalypse of it all. 76 is, I think, the closest to the bombs dropping that we've ever been.
Yeah.
So part of this, also us wanting to discuss this, has to do with the fact that there was a really good Vanity Fair write-up where we got some first look at some production stills before this trailer came out this week. So I just first wanted to acknowledge, because we don't always do a great job of this, Vanity Fair does a really nice job of explaining that Fallout is about a nuclear war that breaks out across Earth in the year 2077, which is, or was, an era of robots, hover cars, and a deep and abiding nostalgia for the Americas of the 1940s. Everything from the clothes to the entertainment to the vehicles mimic the look of a bygone age, albeit with a sci-fi tilt. That retro future aesthetic was one of charms and mega-selling video game series that inspired the show. And then, the bombs drop. Everybody goes into underground vaults, and Lucy, our hero, has lived her whole life in one of these vaults and has decided to leave. I expect
Not something you can normally just decide, but
we'll have to see
what the context
we'll
is.
see what goes down there. Quote from Jonathan Nolan in the Vanity Fair piece that I thought was interesting. He said, "We get to talk about." Sorry, let me read the run-up because he said, so Lucy is nice, but Lucy is naive. In the Fallout universe, the human beings fortunate enough to ride out the apocalypse in underground communities only had that option available to them because they had money. Forcing doe-eyed Lucy out into the sadistic Darwinian remnants of civilization opens the door for Fallout to engage in some social satire as well as action and adventure. Like HBO's hit The Last of Us, which was also adapted from a blockbuster video game, The End of the World offers a rich opportunity to comment on the real one. Quote, "We get to talk about that in a wonderful speculative fiction way," says Nolan, who directs the first 3 episodes. "I think we're all looking at the world and going, God, things seem very heavy. Seems to be heading in a very, very frightening direction." As Westworld demonstrated, Nolan has a fascination with a mix of mythology and psychology that make up human nature. His characters typically believe one thing about themselves while behaving in a radically different way under pressure. I thought that was an interesting way, and there's another quote here, but I thought that was an interesting way of kind of blocking out a lot of the fiction of Fallout, right? Like people who are trying to hold on to one world but living in a different world.
Yeah. What that sounded like to me, like the only thing I was thinking that there's going to be a lot of parody and satire that's going to go over some people's heads.
Sure.
I think anyone who knows who Liberty Prime is knows some of the fun quotes by that giant death robot, and it's parody.
There are going to be some people who are excited to vote for him for president.
There's a lot of that in the Fallout games,
Yeah.
like a lot of that in the Fallout games, and
Definitely.
it's satire. And I don't know if people are going to realize it, especially in today's political climate. But we'll see.
Jack, what do you think? I got one more quote here. How about I read this and then you give us final thoughts on the Fallout show? So here, Jack, I have this one quote I want to read, and then I want to get you to kind of react to the whole thing on the other side, and then we'll go to our next story.
This is my reaction video.
So many of us have such naive ideas even now about everyone else's experiences, and it's one of the things I love about America. It's this giant, manic collection of different experiences, different points of view, Nolan says. Desperation.
I wouldn't say that's my favorite thing about America, but I get your point.
Desperation only exacerbates those visions in Fallout, as Purnell's do-gooder soon discovers. Quote, "Lucy is charming and plucky and strong. And then you see she's confronted with the reality of, hey, maybe that supposedly virtuous thing you grew up with are not necessarily that virtuous. If they are virtuous, they're couched in a circumstantial virtuousness. It's a luxury virtue. You have your point of view because you never ran out of food, right? You guys were able to share everything because you had enough to share." What does that make you?
I think that's fair. I think there is an interesting... Other games have touched on the privilege of the Vault Dwellers, which is an easy perspective to have when you are living in the apocalypse.
Yeah.
But I would also note, not all of the vaults are great and cozy. Like, some of them are legitimate places where you are kept safe from the bombs, but a lot of them are way more fucked up. And we tend to get protagonists from the cozier real vaults because we need them to leave and be functioning people.
And we need them to live, right?
But I would actually be interested in what's up with Vault 33, especially when they say she just leaves one day. I think that, again, because the player doesn't have to live through it, the show gives an opportunity to have this be a more interesting vault than just like you lived a cushy life. But it doesn't sound like that might be the direction they're going.
Yeah, I mean, for those that don't know, like there are some crazy vaults. Like one of them, it was like
the Bethesda run really took the idea of the vault and ran with it.
Yeah, there was like, I forget the exact numbers. It's like 99 men and 1 woman in one vault, and 99.
There's another one where it's 99 women and 1 man.
Yeah,
there's another one where it's 50 men, 50 women, and a panther.
We don't want to be spoiling the show for people.
I don't think any of these will come up in the show.
Sorts of crazy things are going on.
I think the Vault at 4 Vault was just to test cryogenic sleeping.
I don't know what you're talking about, Fred. Vault Tech is a reliable company we can all trust.
Why wouldn't we give them our money?
They're not nefarious in any way. They want to keep us all safe.
Hey, what happened to that Vault Tech employee that has to sign up and Fallout?
Fred has unfortunately fallen off of the call, but you can trust and rely on Vault Tech.
Oops.
Now, we have to, for the love of God, move on to our second story of the week.
Yeah, we're taking way too long.
The question is, guys, do you have it in you to make it epic? Furiosa, George Miller returning to the Mad Max universe, kind of a spin-off of Fury Road, which seems to have less and less a tenuous connection to the rest of the Mad Max movies every time I revisit it. But what are we thinking about Furiosa? Are we just screaming to the heavens that we're amped? Is there anything else to say, really?
He likes to make a Mad Max movie every 20 years or so. This one's honestly pretty early.
Yeah. Furiosa was such a refreshing, or Mad Max Fury Road was such a refreshing movie because it was just like absolutely ridiculous and fun.
It was that.
It was just so out there. And so I think this is just more of that. And that is the direction I want to see this go into. It's just going to be wild and visually cool. And I think that this is like something that we don't have a lot of. I'm hesitant. Like, I don't want them to make a ton of these movies because I don't want to get burned out on this really cool concept. Do you know what I mean?
Well, look, yeah, George Miller still has creative control of this whole universe, right? He's the only one making these movies. I hear you, though, right? Furiosa, I think, was originally supposed to be animated, if I'm remembering correctly. I need to go back and do like a deep dive on the long history of him trying to get this movie made. But yeah, it is really exciting for me to get the Furiosa movie. I am also still holding out for another Tom Hardy, Charlize Theron Mad Max. I wouldn't mind another one of those. But yeah, like you say, Jack, like every once in a while, George Miller's like, oh, what have I been doing lately? A couple of Babes, some Happy Feet, knock out a Mad Max. Then I'll go do a movie about a sexually repressed genie. We could do another Mad Max, maybe. Yeah, like, dude's a legend, and I love his movies. But yeah, boy, I mean, I'm almost in the opposite position where, like, I would love him to just be handed infinite money and creative freedom and just keep making these insane car chase movies.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, especially considering the success that Fury Road had, that it did take this long. And I think it's interesting, I mentioned in the doc that they cast Anya. I feel like she is so recognizable at this point, both because she is her star has been rising for a little while now, and she just looks distinctive. I think it's interesting that we're casting her into a role that most people will already know with a different, pretty well-known actress. But, you know, suspension of disbelief and all that, that's fine.
Well, it's definitely a prequel.
It might be the physically dirtiest Anya Taylor-Joy has ever been.
Definitely. I think that is definitely true. And I do worry. I mean, but I think this is the thing. I was going to make another joke like that. But Jack, I think this is the exact reason why, is because I think Anya Taylor-Joy has been sort of typecast for a while now and is maybe trying to remind us all that she is not a porcelain doll.
Right.
So maybe it's very helpful for her career. Speaking of typecasting, we, of course, get Mr. Hemsworth in his big, long beard and his funny Australian accent. This going to be the first time Chris Hemsworth pops not playing Thor?
I hope so. I think
that's unfair. He was good in Ghostbusters. He was good. Like, he is good in other movies. They just never really seem to like go anywhere.
Honestly, besides Ghostbusters, I don't know what else he's been in.
Well, because like he did that whale movie, right? But like that wasn't like, or Moby Dick, whatever it was called. I wasn't.
He did Moby Dick.
I don't remember.
There's a Moby Dick movie with Chris Hemsworth.
He did the Extraction series.
Oh, but those are good. But that's on
He was
streaming.
in the new Men in Black. I think it was a reboot.
Oh yeah,
that,
he did.
That didn't play.
Extraction was good. For some reason, I thought it was his brother who was in that one. I'm crazy, but
those Hemsworth brothers, man, they'll pop around. I just wanted to shout out before we go to our main story of the week. If anybody is excited about Furiosa and is wondering maybe why did it take so long, I would very, very, very much recommend you read Blood, Sweat, and Chrome by Kyle Buchanan. It is the behind-the-scenes oral history of the making of Mad Max Fury Road and why it took so long to make and how it almost killed everybody involved multiple times. It's an incredibly cool, fun book to read about movie making. So check it out. And now, edit point for Bruno. All right, last thing we wanted to talk about this week was, Jack, you actually sent this article to the chat. There was a little bit, and maybe you can talk to us about the numbers.
You don't need to sound that surprised that I contributed to the show, but go on.
I'm just throwing it off to you since I don't have my normal movie boy around.
Sure.
And yeah, do you want to? So it's an article from IndieWire, the main thrust of which is only one 2023 movie with a budget of over $200 million has made a profit so far this year. And
make your bets now before I spoil it.
We had, drop them in the chat. We had been already kicking the tires on this Steven Spielberg quote that had resurfaced a couple of different places lately. This notion that Spielberg had. I'm just getting so choked up thinking about my beloved blockbusters. That the way that the market was trending was studios were making fewer and fewer movies in exchange for making more gigantic movies, right? So condense down all your 30, 40, $50 million indie pieces and make one $250 million mega blockbuster. And this was since the show, because I remember us talking about this on the show when he said it. But his point was that they were going to hit a critical point in the marketplace where these movies would just have to stop making money eventually. Like enough of these wouldn't hit that it would become no longer profitable. Right. And I think kind of what we're looking at here, and we've been prompted towards this by the poor box office performance of Wish, a movie that I revile. But then this story in IndieWire came out, and we kind of, I think, wanted Jack to just take a deeper dive into the numbers and talk about really sort of what is the situation in the box office right now. Yeah,
absolutely. So recently, the two newest ones that I think sort of prompted this article was Disney's Wish and Sony's Napoleon, which both opened on the 22nd of November and makes the 12th and 13th movie from 2023 that has this over $200 million budget.
Which is really sort of the Hollywood bright line for like a blockbuster movie.
Yeah.
And in December, we will see the new Aquaman film make our 14th and probably final one for the year. So, yeah, we can go through, but the long and short of it is, out of all of them, 7 of which are Disney's and 9 of which are related to pre-existing franchises, and 5 are comic movies. Christ. The only one that has turned a real profit is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, this podcast's favorite movie.
This podcast's favorite movie about shooting a cute otter with a real gun.
Could have been
now, to be clear, these movies didn't do like poorly. It's just that when you have such a huge budget, you really need to do better than not poorly. You know?
So yeah, in the show notes I had dropped kind of a link. I don't know if you guys saw it. It was a interview on Hot Ones with Matt Damon. The clip I sent is about 90 seconds long, but in it he does a really great deep dive on the finances of a movie and why certain movies don't get made anymore. And sorry, that's what he was talking about back then, but I think it's really applicable now. Basically, he gives an example of a $25 million movie and says, all right, I'm going to go to the $25 million movie, and I go to the studio and I say, hey, I want to make this movie. And they say, great, $25 million, here's your budget. Now you need another $25 million for marketing. So now you're $50 million in the hole before you start making profits. But then because you don't sell DVDs anymore, right? Like that's not the intro of the DVD isn't a thing. So all the chance to make that money typically comes back from box office releases, which you need to split 50-50 with the theaters. So now that $50 million that you need to make on a $25 million movie to make profit, because you're splitting 50% of that with the theaters, it is now $100 million you have to make to get profit on a $25 million movie.
And it's a problem that runs all the way up and down, Fred, because like you say, that part of that was dependent on home video sales. But now big box stores are discontinuing their home video departments. So now you're relying on specialty stores or internet vendors, which are harder for people to get. And so then people are more likely to turn to streaming, right? Like it's turtles all the way down on this. And that's absolutely why the industry is collapsing. It's because, I mean, not to have all this fun without Deepak here, but it's because people take the idea of like trying to moneyball a system, right? And we are living in a time where people want a Silicon Valley style moneyball every system, and people are trying to moneyball movies. And it's just the unfortunate truth that like the movie industry isn't really about getting rich. So you can't really moneyball it. And when you try to, you break it. But
I mean,
sorry.
baseball wasn't about being rich, but I see your point.
But all that aside, Jack, let's go ahead and run through some of these movies, and you can talk about how they did and how they needed to do.
So as you alluded, Fred, the numbers are going to sound weird when we're talking about them because the budget for the film is not the amount of money you need to make to turn a profit. You're usually looking at least 1.5 times the budget, and you would love to see double the budget before you start getting real profits. So with that in mind, let's go through some of the 2023 movies we've already seen that crossed this threshold. So the first one we saw was Fast X, which had one of the bigger budgets that we're going to see at $340 million.
And it was all up on the screen, baby.
And to be fair, especially internationally, it did a lot better. So worldwide, it made back $714 million, which is probably just creeping into the okay range. But it's really sort of a break even, which is not what you're looking for when you invest that much money. We also have maybe the biggest failure in terms of reading The Room, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Didn't do great. With a budget of $300 million and only grossing $384 million worldwide. It is the biggest loss out of any of the ones we're going to talk about. We've got The Little Mermaid, also $300 million budget with a $570 million return. A little bit better. I didn't see it, though.
I haven't seen any of these so far.
Chuck's like, I haven't seen it, so who cares? I've seen all of these so far, and I've got to say, so far, I am not surprised about any of these.
Yeah, if you want to stop to talk about any more substantially, let me know. We have the newest Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, Part 1, which had a $290 million budget with $560 million back.
I'm so disappointed I didn't see the new Mission Impossible movie. I didn't realize that was out.
This is the only one that I will comment on, Jack, which I think the Part 1 killed it. Like, I think if
I
this was
could
called
definitely
Dead
see
Reckoning, this thing makes gangbusters.
I think releasing the big stunt in the trailer ruined it. I'm paying to see Tom Cruise jump off a cliff on a motorcycle.
Yeah, but do you know he lands on a train?
I mean, no, because I didn't see the film.
It's a CGI train, so I don't really think it counts, but...
I would be floored if he landed on a real train.
That's what I'm saying, right? What if I came to you and was like, he lands on a real train? Wouldn't that be awesome?
Then they would have showed me that part instead of the cliff jump. And then we hit Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and the sorts of numbers that these studios want to see, with a $250 million budget returning $850 million back.
There it is.
That's how you make money. This is also the only MCU movie to make a profit, obviously, as we will see as we go on. We've got The Marvels, which is a $220 million and made $220 million. So
that's projected. That sucks. To be clear. Just to be clear, they have not made that money yet. That is how much they are projected to make.
Yes, you are right. That is how much they're projecting that they're going to make, which is even worse.
They had that movie was this is the other one that I will comment on. After a terrible year from Marvel, this is the one movie that I think really could have done good for them. And I think that they buried it in the fall and did not market it one iota. And I think that was a big mistake. I think this is a movie that could have got like tweens and teens excited for the concept of young Avengers. And I don't think they stuck that landing, but whatever. What are you going to do?
Well, they needed to save the money to market Wish, obviously, but we'll get to that. We had The Flash, speaking of successful superhero films with no troubling context,
no baggage whatsoever.
Which had a very similar budget of around 220 million and made 271 million. There you go. No, not the biggest comic book flop of the year. Put that on the
budget
TV.
Include Ezra's legal fees?
Legal fees? I don't think it does.
Oof.
Then we have Ant-Man and the Wasp, which had 200 million and made back 476 million. I'm surprised that's not a profit, actually. Paul Rudd costs money, I guess.
Yeah, ants.
All the ants, millions of them.
Difficult to train them.
Tough union.
And then the last three that are already out, Elemental from Disney, which had a budget of 200 million and made just shy of 500 million, which is way more than I expected it to make.
Everybody talked about that movie like it wasn't doing anything, and then it had legs for weeks.
Yeah, I guess that's really what it is.
Yeah, I liked it. It's a good movie, actually. I did see that one.
I didn't see it. I was uninspired from the first trailer. I had no interest in that one.
I was like,
Elemental, felt like a Disney movie from
I have a child at home. So...
Yeah, no, I get that 100%.
Elemental, the only one I didn't. Did you also take
your child to go see Killers of the Flower Moon? A film with a budget of $200 million and a return of $160 million projected? Not even yet.
Oh God, I'm so sorry because I did want to see that one. I just never got around to it.
Well,
and like, that's one. No, definitely not. But that's like one of those. I'm like, I should see this movie, and then I just didn't have time.
I think it was the time. I joke about it every time, but a 3.5-hour movie is hard to block out in your week.
The thing that we haven't talked about yet, that is the real takeaway from this entire conversation. Don't worry, Fred. It'll be on streaming soon.
Which, yeah, actually, I think that is the thing where I don't have the stress to go see them anymore because I know that I'm going to be able to see them later for money that I'm already paying to the streaming companies.
But I will say that is an Apple movie release, and I feel like Apple is the only one that is doing this in a reasonable way. And it's kind of makes me curious to see the final numbers on Flower Moon and Napoleon, neither of which are the biggest like public, popcorny flicks in the world, right? But like Apple is putting a movie out into theaters, taking it out of theaters, and then still making you wait an additional period of time to like see it at home. And I feel like that's the move if you want to actually have a healthy theatrical run for a streaming picture.
I mean, that goes
these
back
day and date things. I don't know. I mean,
definitely with the Marvel movies,
I'm
not
DVDs, right?
Stressed.
Sort of a similar model.
Yeah, Disney Plus is so successful that I'm just like, yeah, no, if I don't get to it, I won't worry about it because I'll just watch it on Disney Plus eventually.
But then the other side of that coin is like Five Nights at Freddy's has had like a nutso box office run.
Cost 20 million and it's made over 200 million back.
And it was day and date on Peacock. But teens love a horror movie. And also that thing is that thing is like movie. Such a giga not of an IP, right? Like
in the weirdest twist of all time. Yeah. This one-man Christian former Christian game developer turned horror game maker.
And like kids who don't even know what it is, right? But just like have the plushies.
Yeah, it's insane. Anyway, last one, Transformers Rise of the Beasts, 200 million, made back 440 million. So a decline compared to a lot of Transformers films, but it probably did fine.
Do we think it's just streaming?
I mean, is it streaming now? It's going on Paramount.
No, sorry. I meant, is that the only culprit we want to point our fingers at? I mean, there's other things going on here, right? Like none of these movies, with the exception of Mission Impossible, really had any kind of like big star drawing us towards them, right? Like, I don't know how much advertising a normal person sees for any of these movies. Like I go out of my way to know what's coming up to the box office, but like Fred saying, oh shit, did I miss Mission Impossible? Right? Like,
yeah, I think because I pay to not see ads is the thing. So I don't know how these companies can let me know that their movies
I
are coming
make a
out.
lot of effort to keep
That's
them
an
from telling me about these things, and then I'm like, wait, how did I not hear?
That's
Right,
an interesting point.
I don't have live TV. I do have a couple streaming services that I pay the no ads fee for, and I just don't see them.
That's fair. And that's an interesting point, actually. Like, I do think you're right that a lot of people go out of their way now more than ever to avoid advertising in general, and how much that has to do with this.
And that's why you
In
end up
general,
getting
though,
like a TikTok video that's a 5-second advertisement for Napoleon, and it tells you to go to Napoleon.com to see the full trailer.
So how do we feel about then the three that the numbers are yet to come in on? Wish, Napoleon, and Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom. Think any of those are gonna pull it out?
Wish has been tanking, which I was not anticipating.
I think it's currently at 50 million.
It was really having a tough go of it. I was tracking it alongside Elemental, which everybody thought had done so poorly, and it was doing much worse than Elemental on just the kind of opening weekend. I do not understand. I think it must be the Disney Plus thing, right? But even still, it seems as if Thanksgiving break would have been the time that people would have been taking their kids to a movie theater to go see the new Disney movie. I wonder. Disney is very stringent in how long they require a theater to show their film. I imagine that will go through New Year. I don't know if they will see a big box office surge later on, but Wish confounds me that it is doing so poorly.
Riley, didn't you have like a strange, I don't want to call it a conspiracy theory, but like an idea that this was more about keeping the copyright on some of their IP?
Yeah. So
okay.
And do you spoilers for Wish? Skip ahead if you don't want.
Spoilers for Wish, genuinely, if you actually care.
So I was really upset because in some of the research that I'd been doing for a side project that we're definitely not talking about on this show, wink, I had just talked to somebody who told me to keep an eye on Wish because they thought that it was because then through some. Here's the deal. Disney does not own the copyright on When You Wish Upon a Star. That may be surprising to you. Go ahead and give it a Google. You will find that that is the case. Disney does not own the copyright on When You Wish Upon a Star.
The song that plays at the start of all of their films.
The song that plays during the fanfare of their movie and is taken from one of their earliest, most successful animated films, Pinocchio. Now, the reason for that is that
it's pronounced Pinocchio.
The reason for that is at the time, Disney didn't see any real profit in owning that song, and so they just let the guy who wrote it buy the rights from them. Now, you may also be aware that the Disney lawyers are a certain breed when it comes to copyright law. The 100-year anniversary of the composition of When You Wish Upon a Star, and thus its day and date to shift into the public domain, is swiftly approaching. This film is a movie about the wishing star from Pinocchio, and the ending of the movie is he becomes the wishing star in Pinocchio, and his some side character at the end of the movie, some side character looks up at him and just sort of plucks out on a guitar. And if that's not going to be enough for Disney to sue them to get ownership of this song within the next 7 years before it goes into the public domain, I'll eat my hat.
So there's that, and then the other part is that it's not just that star.
So that was what I knew before the movie even came out.
That's hilarious.
Right? And I
love that.
Pissed.
I hate that.
I was
so
so angry that was what this movie was. Then I find out it's not just that. The main character, played by, is it Ariana DeBose? Is that who plays?
I will get on it.
Dubois?
She becomes Dubois.
Probably that, yeah.
She becomes the fairy godmother from Cinderella.
Yes, you got it right.
The bad guy, the prince, voiced by Chris Pine, becomes the magic mirror in Snow White. And the Alan Tudyk talking goat character goes on to found Zootopia.
It's the DC. It's the Disney Cinematic Universe, baby.
Yeah, Fred. That's about how I reacted when I found out all that.
This is it. This is how it happens.
Makes me so angry.
This is a Parks thing, right? This is a Parks thing.
Do you
This
think it's
is
part?
this is a
Listen,
Parks
I don't
thing.
think it's a Parks thing.
This is a Parks thing, right?
I think it's a movies thing.
I think
You
it's a
think it's a
movies
movie?
thing. I think it's moving their film to be in line that has existed for 100 years.
No, this
I
is
think it's
Disney
in line with
buying
no,
Tampa
current-
and making it
No.
Zootopia. This is
No, listen.
Oh, well. They would
Okay.
just open another park.
They don't need to. They have enough land. They don't need to buy Tampa.
Right. It would just be a part of Disney World.
That's very possible. We could talk about that sometime. But what I took it as is they did this era of live action Disney remakes, and it didn't do anything to spark any joy for those old movies. I assume in the Disney analytics, it didn't do anything to move how many people were watching animated Lady and the Tramp when live action Lady and the Tramp came out. So they went, you know what, forget this. Let's try something new. Let's put out a movie. Let's see if when we put out Wish, it moves the numbers on who watches Cinderella or Pinocchio or Snow White or Zootopia. And turns out it's probably not going to, because guess what? Nobody's watching Wish.
Seeing it.
Yeah, but like, also, I'm just taking what Riley said and running with it. I'm sure someone somewhere did the math and said, losing $200 million on a movie or buying the rights.
Yeah.
One of those is cheaper. Let's just do the cheaper one.
Right.
I definitely think I think it's a few things like that. But I think this is a movie they need to put out and not one they want to put out.
But no, I think this allows them to renew the rights, Fred. Like if they just purchase them, that would just roll for this next 7 years. But I think this movie lets them go, no, look, it's vital to our brand as a business.
Yeah. Holy shit.
We'll see.
That's so funny.
Anyway,
funny. It's what a goddamn world.
Movies don't make money.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. But I'm hopeful that this will, I don't know, shift the needle on what types of movies are being made. Because as Matt Damon alludes, it does feel like we had more variety not that long ago.
This has been Nerd Here Weekly. Thank you so much for listening. Before we go, though, we want to hit you with some things that have stood out to us lately. There are pop culture recommendations. And this week, just for the heck of it, I want to start with Jack.
Yeah, I built a computer recently, and I've been playing some new games that I wasn't really able to before, but I technically owned. And one of them has been Death Stranding, a Hideo Kojima joint. It's such a weird game. He's such a weird and frustrating creative individual, but I don't think
we tried
there
to
are many
explain him
places...
to our father yesterday. I don't think it really works.
Hard to do. If it weren't for all of Hideo's horniness on main, I would love to see Dad play a Metal Gear game because there's so much genuine military talk in it.
Yeah.
They'll just go on a 5-minute diatribe about an old war film that Kojima loves. But I don't think there's many places where you can really get a work that is so concretely one man's authorial vision. And it's one of the few places you can still do that. So I've been enjoying that. But a very weird game.
Just on Tuesday, a new season of Destiny 2.
One of the games I downloaded. Free to play.
I just keep coming back to this game, guys. I like it a lot. They did a fun thing, and so now my guy has a minigun that I pair with a certain thing that just reloads it automatically. And I mean, the minigun's been in the game since Destiny 2 came out, but it's like the game knows exactly what it needs to do to get Fred Neighbor to play it, and it's
glad the algorithm's working for you, buddy.
Yeah.
And for me, I saw Godzilla -1, a movie you can read my review of now at NIHF.com last week, and by the time you hear this, I will probably be walking into a theater to see the new Hayao Miyazaki movie, The Boy and the Heron. So, which my review of you'll be able to read next week. So this weekend I watched The Wind Rises, what we thought was the final Hayao Miyazaki movie. The last time there was a Hayao Miyazaki movie that is also shares a lot of themes with Godzilla -1. So it was just kind of a movie that was on my mind, and I wanted to revisit it. And boy, if it isn't a goddamn masterpiece that will make you just turn infinitely inward in terms of trying to understand like nuance and human behavior and if it's all worth it or whatever. I don't know, man. It's such a flick. What are you going to do? The wind rises. How do you live? This has been Nerd Here Weekly. Thank you so much for listening or watching us if you're on the website or YouTube. This show is produced by Bruno Maness and me, Riley Trahan. Our artwork is by Wiki Rascals, so you can follow at Wiki Rascals on Instagram. And our music is performed by Purple Planet, who you can get at purpleplanet.com. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at Nerd Here First. And you can subscribe to the show at NIHF.com. Plus, if you love what we do, for just $5 a month, you can get access to the Nerd Out, our deep dive into dorky diatribes. And as always, don't forget to tune in next week to hear.
Holy alliteration, Batman.